be. We're people of deep principle and settled philosophy, and you're going to get differences of opinion when you work through these things. That's part of it. We welcome it. Nothing in Congress is ever easy, especially when you have small margins. But we are going to land this plane and deliver this, and we're proud what we've accomplished together. Every member of the conference can be proud of this legislation in the end.
It's the guy who
truly nation-shaping piece of
covered up for a sexual predator
here.
Sitting right behind this guy.
Give you a couple of things that haven't been mentioned yet or can't be mentioned enough. Some of the big conservative wins in the bill that are common sense wins for the American people. Putting Americans first. I love what Chairman Jordan said. This is really simple. We're delivering. We're doing what we said we were going to do. When you talk about putting Americans first, we're making the largest investment in border security in over a generation.
Jim Jordan covered for sexually abused wrestlers
we are
by their coach.
Down
I forget what the coach's name was.
Aliens receiving Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, and tax benefits that are intended for the citizens of this country. We're shifting the cost of adjudication in the immigration system from the American taxpayer to the aliens themselves. And we're imposing a fee on remittance payments to foreign countries by illegal aliens. Second category,
undocumented immigrants pay taxes, you dipshit.
And overtime, and provide tax relief for seniors.
I think it was Sandusky.
We're going to eliminate taxes on auto loan interest.
Who knows?
If that car is made in the U.S. Lowering the cost of borrowing from America's farmers and providing tax relief for job creators. Another category.
It's really far past their bedtime,
that's the continuing theme here that we all talk about. We're repealing and rolling back over $500 billion in funding for the radical Green New Deal policies from Biden's so-called Inflation Reduction Act. We call it the Inflation Act. We're ending Biden's war on American energy. We're banning Medicaid dollars from going to transgender surgeries for minors. We're canceling Biden's student loan repayment program. We're increasing university endowment tax for these big woke institutions. We're revoking tax-exempt status for nonprofits that materially support terrorism. We're doubling the jail time for leaks of confidential taxpayer information. We're eliminating big businesses' ability to engage in woke PR campaigns to facilitate refundability for green energy projects. We're incentivizing federal workforce to be at-will employees, and we're repealing Biden's disastrous EV mandate. The stakes couldn't be any higher. We could go on and on.
Normal.
It's over 1,000 pages. I could list all the wins. But
guys, they all know how bad this is.
Despite the overwhelming popularity of so many of these provisions in this bill, the guys on the other side of the congressional Democrats,
they all know they're doing political suicide.
They're not going to vote for anything that I just listed for you. And make no mistake about it. This week they're going to vote for. They're going to vote for the largest increase in taxes in American history. They're going to vote against border security, against American energy dominance, and against broadly popular policies such as work requirements to shore up Medicaid. President Trump's one big beautiful bill is going to require one big beautiful vote. And this is our shot. Best chance. This is our best chance that we'll ever have in our lifetimes, in any of us, in any of our lifetimes, to deliver on the mandate handed down by so many Americans. 77 million Americans voted for President Trump, more than that. And in fact, it's exactly what Republicans were sent to Washington to accomplish.
Genuinely, every single one of these people who votes for this bill, if it passes, should be held to account by the American people, should be put on trial. And I know that sounds extreme, but like the cuts that they're talking about are going to kill people.
As Chairman Jordan said. By passing this legislation, wages will increase as much as $11,600. Take-home pay for the typical American family with 2 kids will increase by $13,300 a year. As many as 4.2 million full-time equivalent jobs will be created because of this legislation. But if we fail, here's the alternative. Here's what the Democrats are going to vote for. Every American citizen seeing a 22% tax hike. 26 million businesses would see a tax increase to 43%. We'd lose nearly 6 million jobs in the economy and about $1 trillion in GDP by some estimates. The Border Patrol and ICE would lack the resources to detain and deport criminal illegal aliens, and 1.4 million illegals would continue to receive taxpayer funding of health care.
Citation needed, motherfucker. Undocumented immigrants do not get taxpayer-funded Medicare. Fuck you.
Look, we could go on and on this morning about finishing the border wall and accomplishing all these things that we've talked about. But I'm going to just end it here and tell you that failure is simply not an option. We have to get this done. I told President Trump on the campaign trail that I believed he could be the most consequential president.
They know that because they finally went mask off to milk Trump, and will be imprisoned if any reasonable party ever gains power in the future.
Yeah, I hope the progressive Dems prevail, because genuinely, this is monstrous what they're doing.
and arguably maybe one of the most in all of U.S. history, maybe top 2 or 3. I think this is the way we deliver that. And by extension, that
these
means
people
that this
are
Congress
lying
could
through
be
their
one of the most
teeth in order to
consequential in
give
history.
money
We
to
do
the
not take
richest
that lightly.
people to ever
Despite
exist in the
challenges,
United
the nonstop
States.
media criticism and the historically small House majority, we are right on track to deliver, and that's what you'll see this House do this week.
Yeah, this smarmy piece of shit does spew lies, just very, very smoothly. It's crazy how smoothly this motherfucker lies. And also, I just want to remind all of you, because guess what? This guy also watches porn with his son. So, that's pretty fucking weird. And I think we should continue to call him fucking weird and disgusting. His porn accountability buddy is his son.
Now, we're not going to take a lot of questions this morning because we've already done a ton of media with you in the halls. The president gave you a lot. We gave you a lot. What we're leaving to do right now is gather up the small subgroups in the House Republican Conference and tie up the remaining loose ends. I'm very confident that we'll be able to do that.
God, I hope this guy gets fucked over by
everybody knows what's at stake.
Just a
All
radical
talked about here
Republican.
We are going to get this done. So this is a rare thing. I'm going to say hold the questions and let me go get back to work so we can finish this thing up, okay? Thanks for being here this morning. Thanks for being here this morning. Okay.
Oh, thanks for wasting all of our time, you dipshit.
It's a requirement to take questions in this room,
gentlemen. They're literally required to take questions.
The Rules Committee is gaveling in for a late-night session to debate the Republicans' proposed tax and spending cuts legislation. You're watching live coverage here on C-SPAN.
I hope there's a fist fight. Oh, look, there's Chip Roy. Chip Roy voted, present, rather than voting one way or the other on the tax bill to advance it out of committee. Because he's a coward. Hey, are you guys ready to rob from the poor in order to give to the rich? Yeah, so am I. I got up early for this shit.
There are only like 3 things you can get kicked out of Congress for, and sedition is one of them. 0 sedition trials from the Dems while they were in power.
Yeah, it's been any credibility centrist Dems had, we need to understand that it's gone. No one should listen to abundance liberals, okay? They had their shot with Biden, and they fucked it up. Yeah, they are trying to rebrand any criticism of Israel as support for Hamas. That is a thing that the Republicans are trying to do, because, why not? Girl, retire. Go to a beach somewhere. Why are you here? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. You got a bandage on your face. Go retire to a fucking beach.
Thank you for being a genuine source of hope and optimism in these dark times.
The committee will
I was unemployed when all this started and was spiraling when I found your channel. Anyway, here is Expedition 33 money.
Well, shoot bang, thank you very much for the $50 dono. That is incredibly generous of you. And I'm glad I can help you a little bit to stop spiraling. Because I know this shit is insanity provoking. And I don't blame anyone for doomering or spiraling over this shit. It's just that, unfortunately, we need everyone we can get. We need to snap as many people out of that as we can. And I'm glad you were able to do that. It is hard. I will finish my other games before Expedition 33.
Order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess at any time. Today, the Rules Committee is convening to consider H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Act. Before we discuss the legislation that's before us, I want to respond to a letter I received earlier today, or yesterday, from the Democratic leader and the ranking member of the committee.
Is it die, you old
calls
bitch?
the
Because that'd be
decision
great.
to hold a hearing at 1 a.m., quote, unprecedented, end quote. However, let's look at the record. In the 110th,
I'm sorry, can we just like take a moment and really soak in that this woman has chosen to spend her final years on earth fucking over the poor for the richest people to ever exist so that she can, I don't know, wear a shitty, I don't know, like jacket? What is that? It's not really a jacket, is it? I don't know. She looks like shit. Go retire and be on a beach somewhere rather than like doing whatever the fuck you're doing here.
Congress, Democrats
Surprisingly, she's only 35 years old, chat. The hatred just aged her very fast.
held a meeting beginning at precisely the same time, 1 a.m., on August 2007, on the Children's Health and Protection Act. I was there. When this was discussed on the floor earlier yesterday, Mr. McGovern responded that this was decades ago. However, we've looked back and observed that you did indeed convene a hearing at 1:30 a.m. only a short time ago in 2022. It was for an omnibus, in addition to a short-term CR. Once again, those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Secondly, the letter asked, what else are you hiding? I want to be clear. I have been as open and transparent as possible throughout this entire process, as has the speaker and everyone else involved. We posted the text of the Rules Committee print late Sunday night after the Budget Committee ordered the legislation reported, and we posted a comparative print at the same time showing the changes between the reported bill and the Rules Committee print. There have been many complaints from my friends on the other side about not knowing about whether there will be a manager's amendment and what will be in it.
Hey, I just want you guys to know something real quick, that each and every single Republican is utterly and completely full of shit. This is her from March 16th of this year. Okay? U.S. Representative Virginia Fox spoke in support of the Trump administration's efforts to reduce federal spending during the annual Wilkes County Republican Convention Saturday, but emphasized that certain benefits won't be cut. Quote, if anybody says we're cutting Medicaid, we're cutting Medicare, we're cutting Social Security, we are not. We are not. She told a crowd of 175 people. You lying sack of shit.
There will be a manager's amendment. It is how reconciliation has operated under both Republican and Democrat control. I certainly can't control the time that it will be ready, but I can assure my Democrat colleagues that they will certainly have more time than we were given in 2009 when a 309-page manager's amendment was dropped on us when the ranking member began.
Man, I love when we open up our proceedings with reminiscing about what happened in 2009, 16 years ago.
Reading the motion to report a rule for H.R. 2454. 309-page manager's amendment was dropped on us when the now...
She's basically listing grievances of like times the Democratic Party like dropped a big bill on top of Republicans in order to try and get it passed. And so she's like, you guys can't complain that that we are doing this at 1 o'clock in the morning in the dead of night in order to try and get the largest cuts to Medicaid ever passed. You can't complain about that because in 2009, you guys dropped a gigantic bill on us. And so that justifies doing this to you all now. It's really a sack of bullshit.
Our ranking member began reading the motion to report a rule for H.R. 2454. The record is there. Our friends on the other side of the aisle love to cherry pick the facts about how this meeting is taking place in the dark of night. They've done it for several committee markups thus far.
Well, it does beg the question, why aren't you just doing this during normal hours? Why are you doing it at 1 a.m.? Seemingly for no reason. It begs the question.
Never mind the fact that the only reason the hearings went as long as they did was because Democrats engaged in the legislative process, which is their right. But here's the thing, they can't have their cake and eat it too. They cannot complain about reporting legislation in the dark of night when the only reason it went so late was because of their own actions. Now, in the case of the Rules Committee, the same holds true. The Rules Committee has a long tradition of meeting late into the evening and reporting legislation long after most of America has gone to bed. It is our duty to advance the agenda of the House of Representatives, the people's house. Let's roll the clocks back to when Democrats held the majority in the 110th and 100th.
Explain like I'm 5. What's stopping them from reconvening in the morning instead of while people are asleep? Literally nothing. Literally nothing is stopping them from doing that. What is driving them to do this, two factors, right? Number one, they want to get this passed before Thursday or by Thursday, because that is when I believe the House disbands. I think that's when they go on their next break for Memorial Day weekend, right? And number two, they don't want to do it when everyone is awake, so they're doing it while people are asleep. That genuinely, that is the reason they're doing this. So they're crunched for time. They're just doing this late at night to get extra hours in.
111th Congress. They reported legislation out of the Rules Committee well into the twilight hours. I know of what I speak. I was on the Rules Committee then.
I was there,
For example,
Gandalf, 10,000 years ago.
3:47 a.m. HRes 481, 2:09 a.m. HRes 597, 3:43 a.m. HRes 903, 2:25 a.m. and HRes 445 in the 116th Congress, 12:20 a.m. I do not think there's anything wrong with this. It is how the committee has operated when necessary. It has occurred under Democrat and Republican control. In this case, I do believe we'll be reporting not in the dark of night, but after the day has dawned. I encourage my colleagues on the other side to prove me wrong. Now to the business that's before us this morning. There'll be a lot of commentary from our friends across the aisle about what is not within this legislation. We'll experience ad nauseum a lot of granular level grievances, legislative indigestion, and I'm sure considerable allergic reactions to everything under the sun. It'll be the same song and dance routine that we've seen and heard for months.
Oh, you guys don't want us to take $880 billion from people who need it to live. Oh, the same old song and dance of just not wanting people to die en masse. You know, that same old song and dance of just wanting people to stay alive. God, I hate these people. These people are genuinely just like rolling their eyes at the idea of people wanting to continue to live.
Likely with more drama than shake.
Hey, bitch, why don't you give up your health care? If you're so principled on this, give up your health care and give that money personally to Elon Musk. You know, like, you don't have to take the health care the government gives you. If you're so principled, don't take it. Give all those savings over to your closest billionaire donor. Oh, wait, you're not going to do that. You're going to keep the best healthcare we provide in this country for free because you're a member of Congress. Weird. What a strange double standard.
Shakespeare on the Hill. Despite their misleading rhetoric and talking points, Democrats had their opportunities to deliver when they had full control and passed their own reconciliation packages. They did nothing to make the middle-class centered Trump tax permanent. Despite the existence of the expiration of these tax cuts within their 10-year window, they refused. They even,
I'm just throwing out there that, like, we've had events in the past, like canings on the floor of the Senate. I'm just throwing out there that, like, that happened with relatively few consequences for the people involved. I'm just saying. Is it too much to ask?
refused to raise the top income tax bracket, despite all their...
These aren't Americans, that's true.
points.
They're demons.
Instead, they passed the so-called Inflation Reduction Act and the so-called American Rescue Plan Act that led to reckless spending and record inflation. But Republicans are here to do our jobs.
Literally, the last time you voted to create these tax cuts, it added over $2 trillion to the deficit. Fuck you. This is not about balancing the books.
And our jobs, in this case, isn't out of discretion. It's grounded in statute. We're considering legislation that executes the instructions given to the committees pursuant to the budget resolution, one that passed both chambers and is binding on this body.
That's true, Distron. They don't think of poor people as people.
Our purpose is this: to ensure that our federal spending, taxation, and other revenue-generating concepts align with the current needs of the American people. The American people and this government, by extension, cannot afford inaction. Americans need this legislation to ensure our economic survival and the sustainability of this Republican government.
Yeah, you guys don't understand. We need, billions of dollars. We need to give billions of dollars to the billionaires. We need to. If we don't, our country will die. Don't you guys know that the only way we'll continue to survive is if, we give $100 quadrillion to Jeff Bezos? Think of the poor Jeff Bezoses, chat. Think of all of the poor Jeff Bezoses out there. They're basically orphans. Please, sir, can I have some more? You're gonna say no to that little birthday boy? That little birthday boy, Jeff Bezos? He was just minding his own business, and then that cruel bitch divorced him and took half of his money. We need to give him back the $1 billion he lost to his bitch of an ex-wife. You wouldn't say no. Jeffy Bees, he's getting hungry. That's why he needs your healthcare money. That's why he needs the healthcare money of, 100 million people.
Americans cannot afford the largest tax
I'm going to take candy from him too.
Americans cannot afford the runaway, endless spending machines that Democrats have enshrined via their policies. Americans cannot afford the inflation caused by the Democrats in the last 4 years. Americans cannot afford a soft, fragile embrace of President Trump's successful policies on the border, national security, and growth. inflation has fallen to the lowest level in more than 4 years as April's consumer price index smashed.
Yeah, and exactly what policies led to that? I'm just curious. What policies and bills have led to inflation lowering to that extent that have anything to do with Donald Trump or current Republicans? I'm just curious because I seem to recall Joe Biden's America. There was the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed. I seem to recall that years ago. And now it seems that, strangely, inflation has reduced. I don't know. I can't put these two pieces together somehow. It must have been all Trump.
Expectations for the third straight month. Workers' real wages are up.
The waffle backers, yes, that is
increasing each of the last.
That is Fed posting.
With gotaways, the top threat to public safety are down by 95%. In March of 2025, fentanyl traffic at the southern border fell by 54% compared to March of 2024. Lastly, Americans and the government and this government cannot afford to ignore the specific programs that President Trump campaigned on.
Sentiment understood.
Our bill delivers on the specific acute policies American workers embraced. We end taxes on tips. We end taxes on overtime. We boost tax deductions for seniors. We expand families.
By the way, you all understand that, like, by ending taxes on tips, you guys have probably worked jobs where you got tips. Statistically, a number of you have done that. I know that, like, people don't generally report their tips as taxable income. So understand that the no taxes on tips thing is entirely a handout to the wealthiest corporations on the planet. That or like day traders and like investment portfolio guys who are gonna like switch all of their payments into tips. It's just a way to like loophole taxes.
In any reasonable country with an actual left party, these clowns would be kicked out and forced to do a walk of shame through Washington with fruit thrown.
Genuinely, that should be incorporated into the eventual American Nuremberg trials. I agree with you. Complete with bells. We gotta have the bells.
Centered tax incentives like the child tax credit, the standard deduction, and family leave. The One Big Beautiful Bill is our answer to the American people's mandate from November. It is a clear,
It's not a fucking mandate. It was like the closest election in American history. Fuck you.
full-throated response to the millions of hardworking men and women across the entire nation who demand a serious course correction from the last 4 years and the setting of
Yeah, exactly, Meowing Star. That's exactly what I mean. Brokerage fees are going to be counted as tips. Corporate bonuses are going to be counted as tips. It's just a giveaway to the wealthiest people and a way to loophole accumulation for the wealthiest people in society.
of our fiscal situation on a sustainable footing. The committees within the House
Jack, you're not getting donations anymore. You're getting tips. We'll see. I have a sneaking suspicion that someone who makes like not that much money, am somehow going to be excluded from that. I'm just throwing that out there. I got that sinking feeling.
have all completed their respective parts and all the pieces have come together. I commend all the committees, chairmen, members, and staff who worked for months, often well into the night and early hours of the morning, to craft the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. We're
Every
here to
single one
finish
of them
the
should be
job,
prosecuted.
Shift this legislation to the House floor. With that, I look forward to the discussion. I now yield to the ranking member, Mr. McGovern, for any comments he wishes to make.
Honestly, W.J. Adam, a really good and honestly interesting question to ask is, does she even understand what she's reading? Because genuinely, most of these Republicans have not read this bill. They haven't read it. They don't understand the full implications of this bill. They understand that it's going to affect them negatively politically when they vote on it. They understand that. But they don't really understand what the full effects of this bill are going to be. They just don't get it. You know, like when we talk about millions of people losing healthcare that keeps them alive, like they don't really understand what the effects of that are going to be, really. They don't really understand what like the drastic change and the unparalleled cruelty that's going to be invoked here, you know? And like, you have to understand that these people are stupid motherfuckers. Every single one of these elected politicians, they are stupid as fuck. They do what their donors tell them to, and then they like outsource the work to their staffers, and then they just like, you know, go and drink fancy cocktails together. Like they aren't intelligent people. And like they are, I said this at the beginning of stream, they are paid by lobbyists to incentivize the fact that they don't care. They don't care enough to be intellectually curious about what these things have, what these things do, what the actual effect will be, because it's inconvenient for them to care. Because if they cared, they might actually be like, oh wait, this is horrifically bad. They might have a human compulsion to stop it, you know? So like it is a combination of not caring, being incentivized to not be curious, and to be a useful puppet, which, you know, you gotta be pretty stupid to be a useful puppet. So, like, that's kind of what they mold themselves into.
Well, that's a lot to digest. Thank you. Madam Chair, before we get into the substance here, I've got a simple question. What the hell are Republicans so afraid of? What the hell are you so scared of that you guys are holding this hearing at 1 o'clock in the morning?
McGovern's been pretty good.
It's a simple question that speaks to the heart of what's going on here, and one that I'm going to keep on asking.
I don't know a ton about him,
Republicans are so
but he seems like a human
what
being.
is in this bill, then why are you trying to ram it through in the dead of night? If you guys are so proud to kick 14 million people off Medicaid, if you guys are so proud to rip food assistance out of the refrigerators of moms and dads and their kids, if you guys are so proud of shutting down rural hospitals and hurting our farmers, if you guys really think these are such great, awesome, beautiful things to do, like Trump keeps saying, then why not hold this hearing at 1 p.m. and not 1 a.m.?
Good
why
question.
not debate this bill in prime time when most of the American people can watch? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I think it's prime time in Guam. And I think it's crystal clear. It's crystal clear to...
Look, I'm just saying Jim McGovern looks like he could throw a mean right hook. I'm still fingers crossed for a brawl, okay?
Everyone, what this is all about. Now, the chairwoman wants to pretend like meeting at 1 o'clock in the morning is business as usual around here. It is not. This is not normal at all. She had to go back 20 years into the archives to dig up a single example of rules meeting at 1 a.m. I guess, is that supposed to be some kind of gotcha? I'm actually glad she went back 2 decades to bring it up, because in 2007, Democrats convened the Rules Committee at 1 a.m. to protect people's health care. You guys have us meeting at 1 a.m. to rip it away. Now look at the record. George W. Bush was president, and the Children's Health Insurance Program was about to expire. That's an actual emergency, not a fake emergency like this. He vetoed not 1, but 2 of the bills that we sent him because he didn't want to cover those additional kids. So you guys caught us doing what exactly? Trying to protect coverage for uninsured kids.
That
Great.
is a good
We're proud of
response.
that. There is no comparison here. This is a 1,000-page bill, for God's sake. 1,000+ pages, and you want to shove it through in the dead of night. Because Trump...
And again, when I say, like, I guarantee they haven't read it, that's what I fucking mean. That old lady's not reading a 1,000-page long bill. I'm sorry. She's just not using her free time to do that.
Trump said, close your eyes and vote for it. You're using emergency procedures to jam this through Congress to meet an artificial deadline that you created yourselves because the billionaires just couldn't wait for their tax cut. It's astonishing, really. It takes my breath away. It's just over 100 days, and you guys have gone from promising to lower costs to ripping away people's health care. Now, of course, you don't want anyone to know what you're doing here. It's because you know that this bill betrays the people who voted for you. You have the most ineffective Congress in a century. You've passed almost no legislation into law. And this is how you want to roll out your big centerpiece legislation at 1 o'clock in the morning. This isn't just incompetence. It's much more nefarious than that. You are intentionally hiding what you are doing. What an insult to the people of this country. What disdain you guys must have for the people who voted for you. You know, people are so tired of getting screwed over by a system that doesn't work for them. America is fed up with this BS and people want change. And I don't blame them. I'm fed up too. They want us to make things better for regular people. And what your big, ugly bill does is the exact opposite. You guys and Trump are perpetuating the exact broken system that people hate. You're rigging things for the rich and powerful. More tax breaks for billionaires while regular people get screwed. More giveaways for those at the top while moms and dads struggle to get by. More loopholes into the tax code for Wall Street CEOs and bankers while working families fall further and further behind. That's the Republican agenda.
Liz Galahad, this is happening right now.
Big and beautiful. Greed, corruption, and tax breaks for billionaires. You want to steal from the wallets of working class people, steal from their ability to buy food and get health care, and then you have the nerve to claim that this bill is about cutting costs and reducing waste? Give me a break. This bill raises the debt limit by $4 trillion. $4 trillion with a T. Even your own members, budget hawks in the House and Senate, weren't happy with the latest version of this bill because they know it will blow up our deficit. And the true cost is likely trillions of dollars higher, a cost shouldered by the American taxpayer. So you want to cut taxes for the rich and pay for it by exploding the debt and stealing from the American people. Stealing from people with the least so you guys can give more to those with the most. And I just find that fundamentally wrong, fundamentally cruel, totally out of touch, and totally and fundamentally immoral. Now let me walk through what your bill does, since you guys are so eager to sweep it under the rug. First, you are making the biggest cuts to Medicaid in American history. As a result of this bill, nearly 14 million Americans will lose their health care, and millions more will pay higher premiums, co-pays, and deductibles. That's just a fact. Hospitals will close, nursing homes will shut down, and people will die. And not a single one of the proposals in your bill is about making Medicaid work better. Not one. Your bill doesn't save Medicaid. Your bill destroys Medicaid.
Yep.
We can and we should make Medicaid work better. Absolutely. Instead, your bill creates more red tape, more hurdles, and kicks struggling people off their health insurance. Now,
when is this being actually voted on? It should be voted on at some point in the next 6.5 hours. And I know that's a very unhelpful time window, but that's the time window that they gave. They're going to be debating it. It's possible that this could turn into like a vote-a-rama for like different amendments. I'm unsure exactly what's going to wind up happening here. It'll be interesting.
Who asked for this garbage? I mean, more red tape? Oh boy. When I talk to people back home, that's exactly what they want with their health care. More red tape. I mean, come on. And then, if that's not bad enough...
Yeah, exactly, Kiwi Teepee. I'm going to read your comment. I work in pharmaceuticals. This could very well kill some of my patients. That's why I get so worked up about this shit. This will absolutely kill a lot of people in America.
You are making the biggest cut to food assistance in American history. According to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, At least 5 million Americans will lose food assistance under your plan. 5 million more hungry Americans because of this bill. And that's probably a lowball estimate, by the way. You're slashing benefits from children, from seniors living on fixed incomes, from veterans who served this country and now rely on food assistance just to get by. And why? And why? So that the top 0.1%, people making over $3.5 million a year, can pocket $314,000 a year in new tax giveaways. I mean, you are literally taking food off kids' plates to buy Elon Musk another yacht.
Yep.
I guess he's getting a good return on his
10,000%.
campaign donations, but I just find this whole thing disgusting. And look, at the end of the day, this is simple. It is simple. It's about whose side you're on. You guys wrote this bill for the top 0.1%. You wrote it for the billion-dollar corporations who offshore jobs and dodge taxes. You wrote it for the big oil and big pharma CEOs who rip people off. You wrote it for the rich and famous, for the people who never, ever have to worry about where their next meal is coming from or how to take care of their elderly parents.
And I do want to say that one of the things that the next administration has to do, like immediately upon getting into office and having power, is repeal this. Repeal this budget in particular, or amend it retroactively in order to like put an end. Because like, I guarantee you the way that they wrote this bill is to have it slowly roll out over time. A lot of these bills have 10-year-long effects of different things happening over the course of a decade, right? And it's I believe that some of the costs of this bill aren't going to fully be felt until like 2026. I like they're like they slow roll it so that people don't suddenly get super angry all at once, you know? So whatever the next administration is doing, they need to like get into this and like cut it off.
So you guys picked a side, okay? You picked the billionaires. I get it. You want to betray the people who voted for you. You want to sell them out because Trump told you to. But guess what? Democrats are picking a side too. And we are siding with the vast, vast, vast majority of Americans who you are going to screw over with this bill. We are siding with the 14 million parents and grandparents who are going to get kicked off health care if this month.
Oh, Jesus. Watching this from my registration desk at the ER at my local rural hospital, I'd say 70 to 80% of the people that come through here are on Medicaid or Medicare. Jesus. Yeah, I talked about this, but like there's a decent chance that if this bill goes through, rural hospitals might close down outright.
Monstrosity passes. We're siding with struggling families who are already having a hard time buying groceries, and the farmers whose incomes will drop because you're gutting the nutrition programs that create demand for the food that they grow, and the rural grocery stores that they support, and the nurses who will lose their jobs when you start closing down rural hospitals. That's who we're siding with, and that's who we choose to fight for. Now, I've seen a lot in my time in Congress. I've seen my fair share of bad bills, but this takes the cake. This is not policy. This is theft. It is a direct transfer of wealth from the working and middle class to the ultra-wealthy, and it's being done on purpose and under the cover of night. Republicans have had every opportunity to make life better for the American people. You guys have a unified Republican government. You have the House. You have the Senate. You have the White House. You could have invested in housing, in child care, in clean energy, in community health. You could have closed tax loopholes and make sure that billionaires pay what they owe. Instead, you chose to side with those at the top. You chose to line the pockets of your rich donors, and the health and security of regular people be damned. This is not a governing philosophy. It is a scam. It is a scam. A scam. And I wasn't sent here to vote for trash like this. For the life of me, I cannot understand why you were doing this. Why the hell did you choose a career of public service just to do this? just to rip away the health care and food assistance and security of working and middle-class Americans. Is that really what you came here to do? I don't understand this. I don't understand the cruelty. And let me say this to every
Literal
Republican member
stealing
who votes
candy
for
from
this.
baby shit.
You own it. You own it. You own every hospital that closes, every child that goes to bed hungry, every senior who loses care, and every American family forced to choose between groceries and rent, between their heating bill and their child care, between their kid's birthday party and their parents' long-term care. So you guys can force us to debate this bill in the dead of night. You can do it while the country sleeps. But the American people will wake up tomorrow morning, and I guarantee you they will wake up to how terrible your agenda is. They will remember this moment. They will remember who stood with the billionaires and who stood with them. We will make sure they remember, and I'll be damned if we let this pass quietly. I'm going to fight like hell, and I know I won't be alone. This is a farce, an outrageous insult to the people of this country to bring up a 1,000-page bill at 1 o'clock in the morning, a bill that's still being written, by the way, by Republicans as we speak, in a back room somewhere, for God's sake. And then to try to jam it through Congress in the middle of the night when nobody is watching is just unbelievably cynical. This is why people hate Washington. So if you guys think this ugly bill is so damn beautiful, like Trump keeps saying, you should have the courage to debate it in prime time. Madam Chair, we should reconvene at a reasonable hour and debate your bill in full view of the American people, not in the middle of the night like cowards. And for that reason, I move that the Rules Committee do now adjourn.
The gentleman, the question is on the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
That's a roll call, Madam Chair.
The
Fuck
gentleman has asked
off.
for a roll call vote. The clerk will call the roll.
Fuck off. I can't believe that's how this is done. Fuck these people. Also, just like, genuinely, we will fucking remember who votes on this bill and votes yes.
Ms. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman?
No.
Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy?
No.
Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin?
No.
Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy?
No.
Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon?
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse?
Aye.
Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Leggett-Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Leggett-Fernandez, aye. Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Griffith, no. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
Clerk will report the tally.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. We will move on.
I hope she has a heart
Without
attack
objection,
right
any
here
prepared statements
in the
that our
meeting.
witnesses may have will be included in the record. I now welcome our first panel. Chairman
This is a
Rogers
committee
and
vote.
Representative Smith.
It's not
from
the final
Committee on
bill.
Armed
That is
Services.
true.
Chairman Arrington and Representative Boyle from the Committee on the Budget. Chairman Hill.
But
and
this is one of the
Representative
last
Waters
major
from the Committee on
committee
Financial
votes
Services,
before it goes to
and Chairman
the
Comer
floor.
And Representative Lynch. There he is. Chairman Lynch from the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform.
Did it fail? That
Full
wasn't a vote on the
statements
bill.
will be submitted for the record, and we ask that you summarize your statements in 5 minutes. Chairman Rogers, I welcome your testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman Fox and Ranking Member McGovern. I appreciate the opportunity to present the Armed Services Committee reconciliation title. The HAS title provides $150 billion in mandatory funding to modernize our military, revitalize the defense industrial base, and improve quality of life for our service members. The time for this level of investment is long overdue. The threats we face from China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and others are much more complex and challenging than at any point in our history. We are being outpaced by our adversaries in the development and deployment of critical capabilities. Our defense industrial base.
Yeah, that vote was just on adjourning the meeting.
May no longer be able to sustain prolonged conflict, and it all stems from a chronic underinvestment in our national security. Defense spending is not keeping up with inflation. In fact, we are currently at the lowest level of defense spending as a percentage of GDP since before World War II. That anemic level of investment is endangering our national security.
We don't want to keep spending World War II levels.
Reconciliation gives us the opportunity to do just that. It forces the department to start building the future of American defense now. It invests billions to accelerate deployment of new, low-cost, attritable autonomous systems. These unmanned air, surface, and underwater systems.
This guy looks like he has Lego hair.
Victory on future battlefields. The HASS title will go a long way toward restoring American deterrence and building our ready, capable, and lethal fighting force that President Trump has promised. Finally, I'm very pleased to be able to report that the committee reported this out on a bipartisan basis. I think that demonstrates the underlying bipartisan consensus we have to increase investment in our national security. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and for your help in moving this.
Guys, the vote hasn't happened yet. The vote that was taken was just on whether or not to adjourn the meeting until later today.
Critical bill forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really just have 2 points. I mean, certainly I agree with the chairman of the Armed Services Committee that we face a very complex threat environment and a need to modernize our military in a bunch of different directions. I'm not sure I agree on what the total number of the budget should be for the House Armed Services Committee, but 2 crucial points. If you believe that the Defense Department needs more money, that we need to spend more money on defense, you cannot vote for this reconciliation bill. This reconciliation bill is going to cut taxes over 10 years by somewhere between $5 and $7 trillion, depending on how you guys all finally decide what you're going to put in there and what you're not going to put in there. It is going to increase the debt and the deficit.
Modernize, augment, and organize our armed services. Long overdue. Just be honest. Just admit this is for weapons contractors who donated. Absolutely. It's to keep the war machine chugging along. A lot of these people have constituents and donors who work for those industries. They want to get the increased funding, so that goes into those communities. Full stop.
By $3.5 trillion or thereabouts. So whatever we cram into this bill, whatever $150 billion I guess they're going to try to throw at defense, will be irrelevant a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years from now, because our $35 trillion debt will continue to grow. Our $1.8 trillion yearly deficit will continue to grow. You won't have money to make an investment in anything, not even defense. So we are not going to see an increase in defense spending over the long haul because we are giving away all of the money. If, in fact, you believe that defense is that important, then you ought to be willing to pay for it. We simply cannot continue to borrow money forever. So it's not going to help defense. If you are a defense hawk, you cannot vote for this reconciliation bill, which leads into the second point. I have heard for a very long time from my Republican colleagues that the reason they have to pass their budget is because of the existential threat that the debt and the deficit pose for our nation. I wish I could replay all of the incredibly passionate speeches that I've heard on the floor and elsewhere from my Republican colleagues about how terrible this is. And that's what the reconciliation bill was going to do. And I can picture all of your constituents who you made these promises to, and then you get back here and you put this reconciliation bill up there and they say, well, how'd we do? How'd we do on getting the debt down? Well, it's difficult, it's complicated, but we actually added $3 trillion to it. So the budget hawks in the Republican conference, are you going to stand up tomorrow and say we were lying to you? We never really meant it? It's just ridiculous that you would consider passing a reconciliation bill that's going to add $3 trillion to the debt after, my gosh, the speeches I heard would have made you think that not getting the debt under control was going to kill us all in like a year.
Yeah, of course the speeches are formalities, Superjet Guy. The issue and the reason this is interesting is to see what Democrats try and do. Like, that's the entire point, is to see how are they going to try and argue? What procedural things are they going to try and do? Like, we're watching not because we don't know what Republicans are going to do. I hope that's understood.
So this reconciliation bill is an utter disaster for the country for a lot of the reasons. I associate myself with many of the remarks that Mr. McGovern made on all the things that are being cut. But if you care about defense and you care about the debt, how in the hell can you vote for this? I mean, I look forward to someone making that argument at some point. So I hope that the Republicans who care about the debt and care about defense will vote this bill down. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Chairman Hill, you're recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Ranking Member McGovern. I've never considered myself much of a morning person, and this takes it to a whole new level. A few weeks ago, the House Financial Services Committee completed work on the assignment to us on the budget resolution from Congress adopted early in April. The resolution asked us to decrease the deficit by at least $1 billion over the 2025 to 2034 period. We've done that. We've rescinded the remaining unobligated balances with the Department of Housing and Urban Development's Green and Resilient Retrofit Program created under the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. We ended the Public Accounting Oversight Board's authority to collect
Can we just take a moment to recognize that it would actually be pretty great and good and useful for military tech to not have to rely on gasoline logistical lines? Like the transport of gasoline and fuel for aircraft and for, cars and such. Just take a moment and think which is maybe more vulnerable, renewable energy that they can deploy anywhere, or critical supply lines that are vulnerable to attack. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but I feel like greening the U.S. military is both just better for the environment and allows for a more effective military. Just throwing that out there. That seems pretty obvious to me, but these dipshits are just oh yeah, we're ending that program because it's green and green is bad. And it's just well, God damn it, we live in the dumbest timeline.
Regulatory fees and transferred any unused balances to the Treasury. Audit oversight will continue without disruption. We put a firm cap on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's budget, setting its funding at no more than $249 million for fiscal 2025, with an annual adjustment.
Yeah, but basically any way you cut it, exactly hit the mat. These people are traitors to the Republic.
For inflation going forward. For the CFPB Civil Penalty Fund, once direct victims are compensated, remaining funds will be transferred to the Treasury's general fund. Finally, we capped the assessment collected by the Office of Financial Research at the Treasury.
The G in green stands for gay.
Average annual expenses of the Financial Stability Oversight Council over the past 3 years. Any surplus will, once again, be returned to the Treasury. I'm pleased to report that the Financial Services
Committee
could do
nuclear planes. That was a plan at one point.
And that the CBO estimates the deficit will decrease by $5.2 billion from the efforts of our committee. During our markup, we spent over 9 hours debating our portion of this reconciliation bill. We considered all 40 amendments that our Democratic colleagues offered and did not limit the minority's ability to propose modifications to the underlying legislative text. After this long...
I'd also just point out hydrogen fuel planes are another perfectly valid option for aircraft.
Comprehensive process, we favorably transmitted our committee print to fulfill our obligations to the reconciliation bill before rules today. I want to thank all my colleagues. I want to remind all my colleagues to recall why we are here. The American people voted for fiscal responsibility. They voted for change. Our country is currently $37 trillion in debt. paying billions of dollars in interest each day on that debt. This year alone, we'll spend almost $1 trillion on total interest.
Aren't all Trump supporters definitionally traitors to the Republic now after Trump said he doesn't know if he has to uphold the Constitution?
I don't know if all Trump supporters are by default like traitors to the Republic, but Donald Trump definitely is. Also, just completely unrelated, Airbus is working on a superconducting electric aircraft. That's cool. I think that's neat. Good for Airbus.
If Congress fails to get our fiscal house in order, our debt will continue to grow exponentially, and our grandchildren will pay the consequences. For too long, government spending has been on a one-way ratchet up. So we're here today to finally do the difficult work of extricating our nation from this fiscal predicament. Financial Services Committee portion of the concurrent resolution does more than its part to reduce the deficit. I'm eager to finish our work and finally tackle these issues. I ask the committee for your support in advancing this bill to the House floor. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Representative Waters, you're recognized.
Drag us here in the dead of the night, under the guise of having a productive hearing about it.
Oh my God.
Well, I can't let that not be heard. Well, here we are. Republicans have dragged us here in the dead of the night, under the guise of having a productive hearing about the GOP tax scam bill. But the truth is that Republicans couldn't care less about how bad this bill is. They're going to sit here and ignore every single thing that I and my Democratic colleagues have to say about this bill and how it will harm hard-working American families. And it's all because they are afraid of Donald Trump. They're so afraid of Donald Trump that they will gladly allow the American people to serve as collateral damage to the $5 trillion handout, $5 trillion handout to billionaires in this bill. They're so afraid of Donald Trump that they're okay with him getting richer while their constituents are getting poor. This isn't hyperbole. This is real life. This bill cuts programs that will literally make American families poor and make Donald Trump and his billionaire donors richer. I was there at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau after Trump and Elon Musk illegally attempted to shut down the Bureau. I heard from consumers about what shutting down the agency means for them. This is the very same agency that following the 2008 financial crisis, which many of us in this room remember, was created to stop predatory financial institutions from ripping off our constituents. The same agency that has saved American families $21 billion by returning to them funds that were swindled out of them. Trump failed to shut the agency down in court, so now they're trying to soliciting the help of Republicans. This bill, this budget scheme, will slash the Bureau's budget by 70% and put the agency's crucial work, like cracking down on illegal junk fees, tackling discrimination in housing, and protecting service members and students from scams, to a grinding halt. This is all to cut taxes for billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. Republicans are also pushing to gut the Financial Stability Oversight Council and Treasury's Office of Financial Research, agencies that are designed to prevent another financial crisis like the one in 2008. They're eliminating funding for affordable housing construction despite a national homelessness crisis. I also showed up at HUD because I know the harm this will pose to families. They're also so desperate to do Trump's bidding that they're eliminating another agency that doesn't cost taxpayers anything. The Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, which oversees auditors to prevent frauds like Enron and ensure that companies controlled by the Chinese Communist Party are on the up. What's even more sinister about Republicans dismantling our financial institutions, that they're doing this in the middle of an economic crisis. Our economy is falling behind Europe, China, and Canada. Americans are so economically anxious that they're holding off on starting a family and buying a home. The so-called pro-family party is making it harder for Americans to have kids and ripping away the American dream of home ownership. Inflation is rising. The dollar is down.
I'm seeing some people in chat concerned about helium running out. And that's true. Helium is a finite resource on Earth. However, fun fact about the state I live in, a couple years ago, we discovered one of the world's largest deposits of helium. And that's pretty goddamn cool. The more you know.
Yields are up and borrowing is getting more expensive. And just this
Maxine
past
Waters is
Friday,
kind of spitting, though.
Moody's lowered the United States credit rating because of Trump's reckless tariff policies and growing concerns about how this bill would jack up our debt by giving a massive, unnecessary handout to billionaires. Don't forget, he is all carrying out the most egregious crypto scheme in history, a scam that is enriching himself and his family while average investors lose money. But nothing in the bill.
I just noticed that this guy in the background has a black eye for some reason. Maybe we are gonna get the brawl. Maybe we are gonna get a brawl in Congress.
Addresses this crisis. Trump has thrown the U.S. economy. He's put us in this position. Republicans, let's face it, you're not serious about helping.
Yeah, Jess, the bond market is real rocky right now.
King Trump. This isn't what the American people elected us for. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Ms. Waters. Mr. Arrington, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Ranking Member McGovern, members of the Rules Committee. Only in the mind.
Hard to believe she's married to Jesse Waters. Hey.
% tax hike prevention be a bill that's characterized as trash.
Hey,
Only
Weird Beards.
in the mind of a Democrat
70 Stream Street.
could giving
Damn.
our soldiers, our sons and daughters in uniform, what they need to be ready to protect us, to keep us safe and free, be a scam. Only in the mind of a Democrat would keeping illegal immigrants from receiving taxpayer-funded social services so that
they don't get taxpayer-funded social services. Fuck off.
We could sustain the...
You know what dishonors our military even more than whatever fucked up fantasy you have? Lying about this in order to cut veterans care. Fuck you, asshole. Like, let's not get this twisted. The cuts that are going around, the cuts under Doge, the cuts in this budget bill, come around and blow back on veterans. Fuck you. Like, fuck this faux, think of the troops bullshit if you're gonna fuck over the troops while you're pulling the card. It's insane.
Those programs for American citizens now and into the future could be a scam or trash. And I got a whole lot of other talking.
You also are ballooning the deficit by $4 trillion, numbnuts. You can't talk about sustainability, financial sustainability. Like when you're actively trying to kill it. Fuck you.
Points, and I look forward to the conversation.
You're the budget committee chair. You know the whole this is going to blast our deficit.
Reconciliation bill under consideration today is the principal legislative vehicle for advancing the full America First agenda to realize President Trump's vision and House Republicans' unwavering commitment to making America safe and prosperous again. Our goals were as follows: to strengthen our military and secure our border, to reignite economic growth and unleash American prosperity, and to rein in wasteful Washington spending and begin the process of restoring the fiscal health of our great nation.
The One Big Beautiful Bill Act contains the largest tax cuts, security investment, federal energy asset deployment, and spending reduction in the history of the United States of America. This is an historic moment. We believe it's a generational opportunity to reclaim the American promise, to renew the American spirit, and restore America's greatness.
Oh God, I just
American
noticed
people
his
gave
tie.
President Trump a mandate
It's so
and
ugly.
unified Republican leadership in Congress to reverse course on the failed policies of the last 4 years. Their message to Washington, Madam Chair, I believe was crystal clear. They want competent leaders, common sense policies, and a commitment from everybody in this room, all of the lawmakers and leaders of our great country, to be committed to putting America and Americans first. Let's give the voters what they got, what they asked for today. I yield back.
Yeah, except what about the other half of the voters? It was the closest election in like modern US history. Let's give the voters what they asked for. What about the other half of the voters? We asked for something very different.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Mr. Boyle, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ranking Member, and thank you to all the members who go above and beyond by serving on the Rules Committee. When I was a teen, my late mother would often say, "Nothing good happens after midnight." Now I know what she meant. This big bill for billionaires will truly hurt working Americans. Let me highlight some.
I know this guy's a Democrat, so I don't want to be too hard on him, but it's wild to me how he looks simultaneously 40 years old and 10 years old at the same time. And I don't... It's odd to me. It's like a Benjamin Button situation going on.
Some of the major points. First, it will bring about, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the greatest loss of health care coverage in American history. It does it in several ways. First, by providing and instituting the biggest cut to Medicaid in American history. Second, by launching devastating cuts to Obamacare. Those two combined will result in a loss of health care for about 14 million Americans. But that's not all. Just tonight, a few hours ago, the bombshell came out. The nonpartisan CBO's official numbers show this bill will bring about an over $500 billion cut to Medicare. One of the largest cuts to Medicare.
Damn.
Since
Okay.
the program was created.
They are also
1965.
cutting Medicare. All right.
So the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, devastating cuts to the Affordable Care Act, and one of the largest cuts to Medicare in American history. And why? To help subsidize tax cuts that mostly go to the top 1%. And of course, those cuts I highlighted to healthcare aren't the only cuts that are in here. We also have included the largest cuts to nutrition assistance and food programs in American history, cuts to all sorts of education programs, and the list goes on and on and on. And does that, in the end, mean most working Americans will be better off? No, because also out from CBO just tonight are the distributional effects of this bill. It's in its entirety. And what does it show? The bottom 10% of Americans will actually be poorer as a result of this bill, with the biggest benefit going to the top 1% of Americans. What is also quite clear is that this bill is not entirely paid for. Even after all of those cuts to Medicaid, all of those cuts to Medicare, all of those cuts to the Affordable Care Act and nutrition assistance and on, they don't come close to paying for the cost of the tax cuts. So how is the rest paid for? It isn't. Just tacking on more and more to our national debt. No wonder just on Friday evening, Moody's delivered the third credit downgrade this nation has ever received.
Curly
This
Dorothy,
is
thank you for
truly,
subscribing. I
think all
appreciate
sides
it.
will agree with this. A significant piece of legislation. Frankly, I think one of the most consequential in our lifetimes. Sadly, though, I believe the consequences for my constituents and most working Americans will be absolutely devastating. I urge you to reject it. With that, I yield back.
That was excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle.
Excellent
Chairman
comment.
Comer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Dr. Fox and Ranking Member McGovern. Today, I'm here to talk about a generational opportunity to realize reforms that address the budget deficit. The provisions proposed by the committee.
This guy sounds like he's about to jump on top of like a nuclear bomb and write it down while waving a cowboy hat. That's just the vibe he gives.
On oversight and government reform and Title IX of this bill are part of President
Essentially
Trump's
what they're
larger
doing.
effort to improve the fiscal health of the federal government. Last November, Democrats offered to provide more of the same, but the American people instead elected President Trump to a historic second term.
I have Medicare and I'm on SSDI. I just went through 7 months of tests, biopsies, and treatment for stage 3 melanoma. I filed for all the charity waivers I could get. The others just don't get paid. Well, Bill Seabury, I hope you feel better soon. And yeah, like this, I don't know. Like this is gonna be. Like that guy's right. It's going to be the most consequential piece of legislation passed in our lifetimes. And it's just going to blow up our lives. Oh, did people not know Dr. Strangelove anymore? Is that too deep a cut? Nah, some people in chat are understanding my reference. Okay.
On promises to change Washington, D.C. The deficit reduction.
Congrats on being cancer-free, Bill Seabury. That's wonderful news.
In Title IX of the reconciliation package codify part of the President's vision for enacting his agenda and achieving significant taxpayer savings. Congressional procedure, precedent, and tradition too often contribute to an ever-expanding federal government. Meanwhile, too little is done to shrink the administrative state and make the federal bureaucracy more efficient. The budget reconciliation process provides a rare opportunity to reverse that trajectory. Fundamentally, Congress instructed the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform to advance policies that reduce the federal deficit by at least $50 billion. Despite our committee's limited jurisdiction over mandatory spending programs, we passed a package of budget reforms that save a significant sum. We are
again, like they keep making like very nebulous claims. It saves a significant sum. Just don't look at the end results. We make a lot of cuts. Just don't look at the end results of the tax cuts, okay? Just don't look at what happens after them, okay?
We're in a fiscal crisis. The reforms we moved out of the Oversight Committee met the moment in terms of addressing that fiscal crisis. We did the job we needed to do on behalf of the American taxpayers and future generations. The simple truth is that federal employee retirement benefits significantly outpace those of the private sector.
Also, just real quick, by not paying essential services, that causes the costs of society to balloon, right? Like, it's kind of the same concept where, like, the cost of having homelessness is way more than the cost of just housing the homeless. You know, like when we cut essential services, it's more expensive to not have those services.
To this point, the Congressional Budget Office issued an April 2024
Yeah, we're going to be paying ER fees for people to get primary care. Exactly.
report that I requested stating that, quote, benefits for federal workers cost 43% more per hour worked on average than benefits for private sector workers, end quote. CBO stated further that, quote, benefits also constituted a larger share of total compensation for federal workers than for
Mithril, it's a direct result of something in the United States political schema called the Southern Strategy, which was after segregation was deemed illegal, essentially. The Republicans pivoted from that into campaigning on abortion, religious freedom, etc., and that got the attention of evangelical Christians, and an unholy alliance was born. And so essentially, there is a powerful bastion of Republicans in the southern United States. So a lot of prominent Republicans you'll hear have kind of that southern twang.
For workers in the private sector, end quote. Most of the costs associated with these benefits are funded by hardworking taxpayers in the private sector and federal borrowing.
Also, he's basically saying we need to cut the retirement benefits of everyone who's ever worked for the federal government, the largest employer in the United States. And I just want to point out that when you cut those retirement benefits, it gives the green light for private corporations to cut their own retirement benefits. Like, just as an FYI, like, that's not going to be isolated to federal workers.
I understand that our conference includes members that represent different constituencies. I support leadership's work to combine our package with the provisions reported by other committees into one bill that can gain the support of our conference. And I thank my colleagues for working with leadership to represent their constituents and reach an agreement on a package that advances significant budget-saving reforms. I fully support our collective efforts to advance a package that works for the House and supports President Trump's agenda. Title IX of the legislation before us today
aren't representatives federal employees. Why, yes, they are, but they would only vote to give themselves better benefits and bigger wages. Bigger salaries, I guess. Because they're assholes.
Advances most of the Oversight Committee's important budgetary reforms. These reforms will save taxpayers money while protecting current retirees, as well as law enforcement officers, border patrol officers, air traffic controllers, nuclear material couriers, and firefighters who serve a clear public interest and typically have shortened federal careers due to mandatory retirement rules and early retirement incentives. Taken together, the reforms now being considered in Title IX will reduce the deficit and move us toward the more accountable federal government and the American people demand and deserve. I ask the Rules Committee to promptly advance this legislation for consideration by the House, and I welcome the committee's questions. I yield back.
Thank you, Chairman Comer. Representative
Oh, it's okay,
Valencia.
Mithril.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think this lady is transcribing the events. I think that's what she's doing here. And, like, she looks how I feel on the inside. I just feel angry.
It's going on at 2 a.m. because the Trump administration and congressional Republicans want to unload the cost of $7 trillion in tax cuts onto the backs of American workers, families, and dedicated public servants. And because this bill is so disgraceful it can't stand the light of day. In just over 100 days, we've witnessed the Trump administration lay off more than 200,000 probationary federal employees, including leading researchers, public health experts, veterans, and other critical positions. Trump has coerced 75,000 civil servants into resigning. Trump has replaced 50,000 nonpartisan civil servants.
I didn't understand
with
the joke.
Appointees. And Trump has illegally terminated nonpartisan.
I didn't get the joke.
Independent inspectors general and federal watchdogs. This partisan bill threatens to further undermine the federal workforce by reducing the take-home pay, benefits, and workforce protections of 2.4 million federal employees.
What was the joke? The joke was I was saying that she looks like how I feel on the inside while she's transcribing, and then Lady Raincloud came in and said, "What the fuck is a Kryber? This woke trans nonsense is everywhere now." And I was just like, I don't know what a Kryber is. I wonder what that is. And then somebody else pointed out transcribing, and then I was like, trans. I get it now.
most of whom are middle-class American workers, and a third of whom are military veterans. This is more of the same, an unprecedented assault and political purge of the nonpartisan civil service. And the people who pay most for these attacks are the veterans, children, seniors, and other Americans who rely on our federal workers to deliver those.
I can increase the playback speed, but keep in mind this is live. And we do have some wiggle room because I pause occasionally, but like not that much. But I will speed up the Republican segments.
To deliver those life-saving services. The federal employee retirement system, annuity supplement, a monthly bridge payment for retirees before they're eligible for Social Security at age 62 would be eliminated for anyone not actively receiving the supplemental payment by January 1st, 2028, or who does not meet a specific exemption. Federal workers like letter carriers, VA hospital nurses, food inspectors who have committed decades to the job are eligible to retire would not be able to receive this vital payment to make ends meet. That's $18,000 per year in retirement income for the average beneficiary eliminated because billionaires need another tax break. This legislation would also retroactively change the annuity formula to base most employees' annual retirement payments on their highest 5 years of earnings instead of the highest 3 as they were promised when they were hired. This is an outright theft of earned benefits that would cost federal retirees thousands of dollars annually. And my Republican colleague, Representative Mike Turner of Ohio, was exactly right to speak out and vote against this provision during our committee's consideration of this bill, making the rejection of the oversight provisions bipartisan. Another particularly egregious provision of this bill would force any newly hired federal employee to accept at-will employment or lose 5% of their take-home pay to increase retirement contributions. Federal workers who choose to remain under the merit-based system would be forced to contribute nearly 10% of their paycheck towards retirement. CBO estimates that 75% of new hires in the federal government would now become at-will employees subject to political purges.
Oh, Jesus Christ. 75% of the entire federal workforce would be converted to at-will employment. Do you guys understand what that means? Do you guys that's an at-will employee is an employee that is employed at will, i.e., their employer can, for no reason, terminate their employment at any time. Essentially, they are subject to the whims of whoever is in power. And right now, the people in power want to just be able to fire them, whether they're unionized or not, whether they are, critical or not. And I need to remind you all of what I just said earlier, which is that the federal government is the largest employer in the United States. So I just, I have a sound clip for how that makes me feel. Yeah, it sucks. I was using a lighthearted sound effect there to try and make it a little bit more palatable. It didn't work. It didn't work. I've been an at-will employee and it sucked. I just one day never heard from my job again and I was unemployed. It sucks.
Of the federal workforce with little to no protections. I'll be introducing amendments to strike this bill's at-will employment provisions and to exempt veterans and federal workers who entered the workforce prior to the bill enactment from the changes in the annuity formula. Despite the claims of this administration, federal workers are not leeches on the system, but hardworking, dedicated public servants who are paid about 25% less than their private sector counterparts. A strong, nonpartisan federal workforce is fundamental to a functioning democratic government. These dedicated workers deserve our respect and our support. Like most Americans, federal workers faced increased costs for groceries and housing and economic uncertainty because of President Trump's reckless tax and tariff agenda. The Trump tariffs are estimated to cost American households $4,900 per year, the largest tax increase since 1968. President Trump and congressional Republicans are also advocating for a tax regime that will actually increase federal deficits by more than $4 trillion over the next 10 years. And worst of all, they're seeking to offset their tax cuts for billionaires by gutting $800 billion from Medicaid programs. My Democratic colleagues and I strongly oppose that motion. Oversight Democrats.
Fuck, man. The devastating, again, when I talk about this being a devastating thing that will radicalize huge numbers of people, this is what I mean. And there are just a lot of people who are checked out of politics right now. The vast majority of this country doesn't vote. But like they're gonna vote to do something about this. They're gonna march to do something about this. This is some the people affected by this aren't just gonna lay down and die. They're not gonna necessarily be able to go out and find another job in a lot of cases. And it's just Republicans are setting up a crisis that is going to blow up in their faces. But I'm in favor of that, but I'm not in favor of the suffering of millions, tens of millions of people is what we're talking about here. And there's cursed chaos. There's a very real chance that people pushed to the extremes of desperation start doing things that are quite ugly. You know? There's not, when we talk about the poor getting poorer, there's not really that much more wiggle room if you're poor. At this point, there's gonna be a lot more Luigi Mangiones. That's just, I don't know how you get around that, really.
Stand with struggling families. We oppose corruption and abuse of power, and we are committed to solving our nation's crises without sacrificing the well-being of our civil servants. I urge my colleagues to reject this reverse Robin Hood legislation, which robs from the poor to give to the rich, and instead work towards a budget that respects American workers and the basic needs and services they provide. I welcome the committee's questions, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Chairman Arrington, we keep hearing a constant refrain from the Democrats that the tax cuts were driven to the wealthy.
They are.
The Washington Post fact-checked what they referred to as Democrats', quote, zombie claim, end quote, that 83% of the benefits from Republican tax reform in 2017 went to the wealthiest 1%. They fact-checked this multiple times. The Post gave the claim 3 Pinocchios, saying, quote, the tax bill has been in place for more than 3 years.
You failed to consider the Pinocchios.
Data that the top 1% did not end up with most of the tax benefits. Do you agree with me that the Democrats have a credibility problem when they discuss President Trump's tax cut?
I'm sorry. She's just lying. She's just lying. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act provided largest tax cuts to the very wealthy. This was the average 2025 federal tax reduction by cash income percentile. The lowest quintile got 70%. The second quintile got $390. Did I say 70%? I meant $70. Middle quintile, $910. Fourth quintile, $1,680. Top quintile, $7,460. 95th to 99th percentile, $12,860. Top 1% from the 2017 cuts got $61,000, and the top 0.1% got $252,000. Fuck off.
They have a major credibility problem because the facts are contrary to their mischaracterization. The top 1% actually pay a higher share of their taxes than they did prior to TCJA. So in that respect, it became a more progressive tax code.
No, they don't. You, like, again, just lies. Like, literally, you can also, like, show the change with the top 0.1% got a tax break of 2.7%. The top 1% got a tax break of 2.9%, larger than any other group aside from the 95th to 99th percentile. Lying sacks of shit.
But every other income level saw a tax break. In addition to that, we had record wage increases. In fact, the bottom 10% of wage earners grew their wages at twice the top 10%. And it's 3 times the income increase of the bottom 50% relative to the top 1%. So I would just add that it couldn't be a scam.
You know what? Here's the corporate tax cuts. You know, for the corporate tax cuts that occurred. Hey, anyone want to take a wild guess to see what the effects of the corporate tax cuts were? Anyone want to take a wild guess? Which quintile got the most tax cuts? Anyone? Bueller. The top 1%. It was the top quintile. Look at that. Total federal tax change. 65.3%. And the corporate tax change, 71.4%. Crazy.
On working people and poor people when we achieved the lowest poverty rate in recorded history.
Sorry, that was the share of the federal tax change. The total federal tax change versus the share of the 2018 federal tax change by expanded cash income percentile. There you go.
So people got...
The top 20% is the top quintile. Or I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Quintal, whatever.
Better opportunities and bigger paychecks. And the people at the lower income spectrum got the biggest benefit from TCJA.
No, they didn't. They got $70 per filer. Fuck you.
So
you essentially handed like a $50 bill and a 20 to like every homeless person and then patted yourself on the back as if that's going to help them stop being homeless. Fuck you.
Mischaracterization may be an understatement for how they describe tax cuts for the rich. And let's remember, the top 10% of income earners are paying 70% of our salary, the lights, and the entire freight of the federal government. So when we talk about tax fairness and equity, they have an interesting perspective on that.
Thank you. I think the word mischaracterization of what they're saying is a kind way to say it.
These people are fucking evil.
There's a 3-letter word that characterizes it better, but we'll leave that alone. When President Biden stated the Trump tax cuts went to the top 1% and not ordinary people, didn't factcheck.org have to debunk him? And didn't the liberal...
You know, it's so strange to me that, like, this is the scenario in which you guys suddenly give a shit about fact checks. But, like, any kind of fact check of Donald Trump, you guys don't give a single fucking shit about. Like, you don't care that he tells, 20 dozen lies every single time he opens his mouth. Yeah. All right.
Liberal tax policy center even have to correct President Biden And didn't even the New York Times state that, quote, studies consistently find that the 2017 law cut taxes for most Americans?
Sorry, I said I was going to
Doesn't
speed this up.
constant refrain we're hearing from Democrats now match exactly what has been categorically debunked?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And nobody knows that better than the average family of four who saw about a $5,000 increase in their take-home pay because of their tax relief, which was almost the opposite effect of the inflation tax they paid over the last 3 or 4 years.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGovern.
I think what you're talking about is not what we're talking about here today. We're talking about the Republican reconciliation package that is going to be jammed through this committee and rushed to the floor. And if I am understanding the numbers correctly, the latest version of their tax scam, the top 0.1% stand to gain $255,000 on average in 2027 alone. That's $700 a day, every day. The people who make over $1 million a year will also get their pockets lined. On average,
I'm sorry. Put this into like a more like understandable human perspective, right? So what Republicans are basically proposing here is, a government agent, industrious music playing, walks down the street, right? And as this agent is walking down the street, on the left side, there's a homeless man. On the right side, there is a wealthy businessman who pulls up in a car made out of solid gold, right? And the government agent goes, yes, it's time for me to give you your tax refunds. It's time for me to give you your government payouts. Here you go, my good sir. And he hands the homeless man $70, right? And then he goes, and for you, good sir, and hands the passenger, the businessman in the solid gold Bentley, just 2 suitcases filled with cash of untraceable, unmarked, $1 million bills. That's essentially what we have happening here. Good day. And he just walks away. If you wanted to put it into terms of like how much they make per day, let's just real quick here to put it into context, right? $700 a day to the wealthiest people on the planet. Let's see here. He turns to the wealthy man. Here's $700, your daily payment, sir. And to you, my good homeless resident, here's $1.92. Truly, we have been virtuous and just this day. Ta-ta! And then he just like, in what world does that make sense? In what world are you acting like you've just done a favor to like someone who's in the most vulnerable position in society by handing them $1.92 while you hand one of the richest people on the planet $700 per day? It's just that's insanity. That's insanity. And you look at this and you're like, yes, this will help the poor person get out of poverty. Surely this will help the homeless man get a home. That $1.92 per day. What the fuck does one of the richest people on the planet need with an additional $700 per day?
Millionaires will have an additional $81,500 per year, but pennies for everybody else. For those earning less than $50,000 per year, the average benefit is $265. That's less than $1.
Oh, I'm sorry. By the way, was I saying $1.92? I actually meant 19 cents. I added that extra dollar on accident. I actually just meant 19 cents. You literally hand the homeless man the spare change in your pocket after you hand the wealthiest man on the planet $700. Oops. That's what Republicans are proposing.
Per day, and that's laughable when you begin to look at the gaps that are going to be created by these cuts in other programs. But Mr.
Well, Zara and Joy, yeah. The goal of capitalism is to win by having all of the money and trapping everyone on the planet in your company town to be your slaves.
Boyle, I have a letter here that you received along with the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, from the director of the Congressional Budget Office. And I'm looking at this chart here about who benefits from this bill. It doesn't seem to match what Chairwoman Fox and Mr. Arrington are just talking about right now. You want to comment on this?
What that chart shows, and by the way, that's not my chart.
Yeah, I know.
That's not your chart.
CBO's.
That is the official scorekeeper's chart, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. And if you can show that chart again, what it shows is the poor get poorer while the rich get richer.
Yep.
And so let me quote again from the CBO, specifically their numbers. For people in the bottom 10%, they will experience a 4% loss of household wealth. Meanwhile, for people in the top 10%, they will see their household resources increase by 2%. It is as simple as that.
And I ask unanimous consent that this be entered into the record, Madam Chair.
Without objection.
My view on legislation is that if you believe in the legislation, you ought to vote for it. If you don't believe in it, you ought to vote against it. So I would say to my friend Chairman Arrington, if you believe the stuff that's contained in this reconciliation bill, if you think these priorities are the right priorities, and if these represent your values, then by all means vote for it. I'll disagree with you. I mean, I could spend all day here.
Just real quick, I have here's that chart they were showing. Change in household resources as a percentage of income under current law and the lowest and highest income deciles selected years. Essentially, the lowest and poorest parts of society are going to get poorer by an average of 2 to 4% per year until 2033. While the highest decile, which I think is like the highest 10%, are going to get richer by anywhere from 4 to 1% per year until 2033. Disgusting. Literally robbing the poor to give to the rich.
Because I'm also on the Agriculture Committee, and we had a lengthy hearing on the impact of the nutrition cuts on average people and on states, too. There's an unfunded mandate here as well. And it's going to be significant. But if this bill represents your values, I'll just say for the record, it doesn't represent my values. And so, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. But, let me ask you a question, though, Chairman Arrington. I mean, this is the Rules Committee print of what we're talking about. Is this Rules Committee print in front of us, is this the final version of the bill, or a change is going to be made?
Sir, it's the final version of the bill until the manager's amendment is completed, and then we'll know what those definitive changes are.
So are negotiations still ongoing? And if so, with whom? Where are they, and in what room? Shouldn't you be in that room instead of being here?
Yeah, they aren't even done writing it. Like I thought he might have been. I thought McGovern might have been being facetious when he said, like, "Oh, they're writing it in a back room somewhere." That seems like, oh, well, maybe that's just like a thing, right? Like maybe that's just like a thing that they say. But no, he meant that. He meant that shit. They are literally, as they speak right now, still writing the goddamn bill. Fuck, I hate these people.
Right now, because you're the budget chair. During the budget markup on Sunday night, you said that you weren't aware of any changes being made, and then my colleague on the Rules Committee, Mr. Norman, on this committee, followed up saying he was happy with the direction, with the changes that were being made. So which is it? So changes are going to be made.
Well, I'd say there have been a lot of conversations and discussion and healthy debate within the conference. But as far as I'm concerned, my job was first to make sure that the budget targets were achieved, and they were. So we had a balanced budget reconciliation bill. That was our job to affirm that in the Budget Committee. As to what changes, I don't know of any definitive changes until I see it on paper. Lots of things change, as you know, in this process.
But in the Budget Committee markup, you said that we would have an official score from the nonpartisan budget experts at CBO before we vote on this bill. And when will we get that score?
I believe we will still have a score on the final bill.
So you think we'll get the score before we vote on it?
That's my expectation.
And if we don't, would you recommend that we hold off until we get to
I think we got a lot of the bill scored at this point. My expectation is.
So would you, like, it's not done yet, so why are we voting on it? Wouldn't you want to vote on the finished thing since you don't even know what's in it until it's done, right? I think we know enough. I think I think that ship is seaworthy. Look, sure, it's not done yet. We haven't finished building the boat, but I'm sure it's seaworthy. I think I want to give it a sail. Are you sure you want to do that? We have like another 2 weeks until it's done. No, just put it in the ocean. It'll be fine. Worst case scenario, we cling to, like a plank of wood, like Jack and Rose from Titanic. It'll be romantic. Worst case scenario.
They'll have the bill scored.
Yeah, but with the changes,
just like the Titan sub.
One of the things about CBO is it talks not only just about the impacts on the deficit and the debt, but also on like how many people will lose health care benefits, or and other benefits. So any change will impact our constituents differently. And so I guess I just want to, do you think it's okay for us to vote on this bill without knowing how much it will cost the American taxpayer or how many people will get kicked off of their health care? And if you're saying we should absolutely have a final CBO score before we vote on this, I could live with that. I just don't, I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're committing to or not committing to.
I'm committing, my expectation is they'll have all the scores, Mr. McGovern, but I think they know the various machinations and what that will do to ensure a certain number of people who receive, for example, Medicaid, who are in this country illegally under the policies.
No one in this country illegally is receiving Medicaid. Like, I don't know how they keep making this claim. And I don't know where they get, and obviously I know that they don't care about the data. I know that they don't care about the claim, but like, I care about it. I want to know where they're getting like this, even if it's fake data, I want to know where the hell it's coming from, because like, frankly, it's just batshit. You guys know that in order to get Medicaid, you need to like submit like your social security number. And like, if you have a fake social security number, that'll be fine for, some places of employment. It'll be fine for like, paying taxes or something like that. Cause the IRS doesn't tend to look, or at least historically it's been fine. I don't know if it's still fine in Trump's America, but like historically the IRS just doesn't look too closely at like that information because they're getting money for the government. They don't really care that much about whether or not the person giving that money is here legally or not. And the thing you need to understand is that if you're trying to get services from the government and you give a fake social security number, they're going to come on you harder than like the hammer of God. Okay? Like, they're going to come after you because you are trying to take money from the government. You can pay in, getting the money out, that's a no-go.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and Swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack. Riverboat.